Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. That this is an opportunity to talk with folks who I consider family. Debate for me was and is, continues to be, and will always be my family. So you are an extension of that. I haven't had an opportunity to participate in a summer camp experience for a couple of years now, although there was a long period of time where this was where I would be, maybe not on this campus, but on some other campus, teaching debates, and to be honest with you, with all of that laundry list of things that I'm doing, and I am doing them, this is the thing that I miss. And so, thank you for allowing me to be here. And I think I should start here. When I talked with Aaron and the folks about coming down here, over here for this conversation, I was told that I had carte blanche. I can decide to talk about whatever I want. And that's a bit dangerous with me because I have a lot of things that I'm curious about. I have even more things that are on my mind, and I occasionally forget the settings that I'm in, and my filter kind of shuts down, so I say some things that people may think to be a little impolite. But since I'm amongst friends, I think that's going to be okay. Originally, I wanted to talk about the interplay between community, communication, and conflict. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But as of last night, as with sort of most people who do speeches, you're sort of sitting up and the mind starts turning, things sort of went a different direction. And I'm going to talk about the questions. Yes, the questions. I think art is extremely important in what we do and who we are. That is an inspiration for much of the work that we do, many of the arguments that we make, and it fundamentally can change the world. So I have to give much respect to the artists who have inspired this for me. Commons, The Question, On Like Water to Chocolate, one of the greatest hip-hop albums that have been produced. Commons is fundamentally, I think, one of the greatest lyricists that we have. He's gone into some TV stuff recently. That's okay. But definitely go and listen to some of his albums. Ai Weiwei, a sculptor, a poet, a painter, a Chinese dissenter. I'll talk more about him later on, but both have inspired who I am and what I'm doing here. I think that all advice is autobiographical. Any advice that I give you comes from my experiences. In order for you to understand the rest of this conversation, you need to understand more about who I am and the person that I have become. One, I'm a black man. Whether I accept that or not, others will impose that on me. But I like who I am. I like that I'm a black man. I also am someone who has a tremendous amount of class privilege. All of that stuff that I'm doing came with a substantial pay raise. One that I wasn't used to growing up. I grew up extremely poor in Atlanta. My mom did not have a car. We had to move in with my grandmother. My grandmother raised me. I would walk with my mom up to the bus station, and she would take the bus at 10 p.m. at night to get to her job at 11:30 in the evening. She would then take the bus back in the morning and sleep. Then she would do that cycle again. She would take her paycheck and go to a check cashing place and give them 15 to 20% of her check in order to get cash. That was the life I grew up in. We didn't have a lot of money, had a lot of love, and had a lot of sisters. The most influential people in my life are women. My grandmother raised me. Probably going to talk more about her later on, but she is fundamentally the reason I am the man who I am. There are three different women in debate who have really impacted my life in some substantial ways. Dr. Carrie Ann Crenshaw at the University of Alabama was my debate coach there. She was a white woman who had no reason to invest into this black man, but she did. She made a tremendous amount of sacrifices in order for me to achieve academically and professionally who I am. Melissa Maxey Wade at Emory University, was the executive director, and I was under her wing for about 11 years but as an employee, but even before that, as a UBL student in the Atlanta area. It was because she cared, because she was interested in giving her time and energy to those who did not necessarily look like her or experience the world like her, but saw the injustices that were leading to the maldistribution of opportunities in the world, that I am here in the place that I am now. My debate partner, my junior and senior year, but also my roommate, Julia Shaw at the University of Alabama, was a lesbian woman who was more comfortable with her parents thinking that she was dating a black man than the fact that she loved another woman. It has fundamentally impacted my understanding of what I think about justice and the role that I need to play in fighting all oppression wherever it exists and however we come to understand it in this country. I love and revere debate. Can't say that enough. I live debate. It is who I am. I can't separate my desire for reason, rationality, and argument from the ways in which I understand how I should interface and interact with other people. I believe that the most respectful thing that you can do is to entertain the argument of another person. The most disrespectful thing that you can do is to hear someone make an argument and be silent. Arguments are a form of love, and I try to express that love every day with every person I engage with. Margaret Heffernan, who is an organizational consultant, writes that rich debate and argument are critical activities in any organization because done well, they surface fears and doubts, and they reveal ideas. They help us to see what we are prone to ignore, challenging us to think for ourselves, think better, and think differently. I wholeheartedly agree with her. My background is in cultural studies. I am currently getting my doctorate in education management, and I'm focusing on self-authorship, which is really how do we get students to move from using external formulas, external ideas to guide the way in which you understand your experience in the world, to moving to a place in which you develop your own internal compass for who you are. I am also very interested in the ways in which identities inform who we are and how community development takes place. My long-term career objective is really to become the director of the Grundstock-Fragen. In Germany, they have these positions in organizations where your sole job is to ask the fundamental questions that are needed to move the organization forward. They are directors of the fundamental question. They are asking the question. Not providing the answer, but figuring out what are the questions that need to be asked. Because the reality is that it's all about the questions. That if we get the question right, the answer will inevitably come to us. So, it is with that we start to ask more questions. We spend a lot of time talking about issues like diversity and inclusion, equity. I'm interested in us having a conversation. And this will be a conversation. I am interested in your thoughts. I am interested in your perspective. And I have what are probably, I'd like to identify as 3 vignettes, if you will, of things that we will discuss and talk about. The first will deal with Betsy DeVos, who is our Secretary of Education. Some of you may be familiar with her, but I'll give you a little more background. Right when she became the Secretary of State, she made a statement about HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities in the United States. She made an argument that we should honor these institutions because they are pioneers of school choice. She is someone who believes that the private sector should be the primary mode of educating people in the United States. So for her, this was an opportunity to tie together her primary interest of privatization of education with a constituent of people that she didn't quite know a lot about. However, if you have any idea of the history of HBCUs in this country and how they came to develop, you understand that she was fundamentally wrong. Not just wrong, she got it totally backwards. These were not pioneers of school choice. These were fundamentally institutions of survival. And they only existed because black folks were not allowed to go to any other institution that existed. They are outstanding institutions now, but we should not forget their origins. And we should not create a different narrative about their history in order to justify your particular policy. And so, you can imagine that there were quite a few black folks in the United States who were not quite happy with the way in which she was discussing this issue. Fast forward a few months, she is invited to the commencement exercise and to be the keynote speaker at the Bethune-Cookman University's commencement and give that address. Bethune-Cookman is a historically black college and university here in Florida, and I would like to show you a little video and have you react, if you will, to what you're seeing from her commencement speech.
Dr. Jackson, Board of Trustees, thank you so very, very much for this great honor and privilege. I am honored to become a Wildcat. And it's a real honor and privilege to be with you as we celebrate the Bethune-Cookman University class of 2017.
If this behavior continues, the meetings will be mailed to you. Choose which way you want to go.
Two players here. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos is giving the commencement address, and she is honored to be there. It doesn't seem like everyone is honored to have her there. The other is Dr. Eddie Edison Jackson, who is the president of Bethune-Cookman, who actually recently retired, but at that point in time was still present. So many questions about what's going on here. Diversity assumes that there's a meaningful difference that exists among us. Within a commune, within a community, that there is a meaningful existence that is there. Is it an appeal to diversity, or is there something else that's galvanizing the protest of the students? This is where we start our conversation. What do you think is galvanizing the protest of these students?
Over here.
Yes.
Well, I think at least partially it has to be about like her role in the Trump administration, and just the fact that she's so unqualified for that job, and to be speaking there when she's just
her role in the Trump administration, that one, she is in the Trump administration. I don't think if she was a Secretary of Defense, she would have received necessarily a warm welcome. But I think you're right, that a role in that administration, but also her comments about HBCUs may be part of this. Jump in.
I don't think people like to see as like a more than someone else's policy. So that's just something people be like.
They felt like they were pawns.
Yeah.
She put it in the policy of this administration for school choice, for privatization. Jump in.
She said before that she made those comments about the HBCUs, and now she comes to an HBCU and she says like, "Oh, I'm honored to be here." People are like,
Okay. That prior behavior informs the way in which we understand the guests who we bring into our house. That it's not like you can just wash away those statements or wish them away. So it informs their response. Jump in.
It was like she was mocking the students.
In what way? What are you thinking? How does it constitute mockery? I think you're onto something.
Because the comments she made about these historically black colleges made it so she essentially made it seem like she didn't support that, and then to go speak at one and was mocking.
Yeah. We have an antagonistic relationship that's developed here. She wants to be there. The students do not want her there. I'll take one more before we move to the second question. Yes.
Mine's more of a question. Why did the president invite her? It just doesn't make sense why he would invite her, having full knowledge of who she is, what her policies, well, if you call them policies, but what her goals and philosophies are regarding education. How she has how she has worked through educational systems over the past 20 years, because she hasn't been in education, she's been in the business and marketing end of things. Why would he invite her?
You have framed my second question much better than I did, I think. That there are 50,000 people who signed the petition. What is the pedagogical argument that Dr. Jackson and his administration can make for why, understanding 50,000 people have signed the petition to not want her, understanding that the students are going to protest. I actually know someone who's very high up in the administration at Bethune-Cookman, and they were fully aware that the students were going to protest. Why did they continue to go through with this? Yes?
I think it goes both ways. Either A, he invited her because it was a question of politics, i.e. Trump already probably does not like HBCUs, so probably inviting his Secretary of Education would be a good thing. Or he's on the flip side, which is that if he knew that 50,000 people were going to protest and did not want her to be there, it would be televised and would be seen as a sort of revolutionary act that acted out against the Trump administration.
Right. Maybe there's some politics that are at play, that we get something, there's a quid pro quo maybe, the HBCUs get something if they invite Dr. or Betsy DeVos to attend. Maybe this is seen as the rope-a-dope, setting her up for a revolutionary act and using her as a foil against the students. Other thoughts?
I'm sure that Dr. Jackson wanted his students to hear opposing viewpoints or something they would necessarily be comfortable with.
There is an argument to be made that yes, everything that she has said, all of her policies are antithetical to the very existence of what Bethune-Cookman was established on. Access education, particularly for the most marginalized people of our society, being and living out to the true visions of a democratic society, and that is the very reason why she should be encouraged and allowed to participate in this conversation. That the disagreement, the place in which we disagree is the reason why we should have her here. Some have made that argument.
I think there's a difference between inviting her to give a lecture or to have some kind of symposium. I think that's a totally different issue than a commencement. A commencement should have some kind of celebration. If you think about what it is, they are commencing into the world, right? They are ending their college careers, but going out into the world. Is her presence there to suggest that they're going to be running into that kind of a roadblock the rest of their life? That would be a horrible message.
Or an accurate message of the way in which we exist in the world.
Right.
That is there a value to including in the conversation perspectives that we fundamentally disagree with?
I do not think if those perspectives were not, if those perspectives were not included, it would not be a conversation. Or at least a valuable one, because then there would be no sort of like argument or response, because it makes the initial sort of introduction of the perspective.
So the argument is made that it's not really a true conversation if there's not a point of contestation. That the meaningful conversations that we want occur when there is disagreement. That's what I think. Other thoughts? Jump in.
I think he wanted her to see the people that she was hurting with her policy making, and he wanted her to see that those people would still celebrate and they would still go out in the world and be pioneers of the world, regardless of what she says.
There may be a resiliency argument that's made here. That you can witness, be a part of, see, and overcome. There's also a conversation to be had about the hierarchy of values that exist. The argument that's being made that this is a celebratory moment for these students. I am sending you out in the world, and I should send you out in the world on the note that you want to be sent out. That is a value. But is it a higher value than how do we figure out, how do we create a democracy, a space within higher education where we negotiate our differences, that we create opportunities for folks who fundamentally disagree to get together in the same room and subsequently find places in which there is overlap and commonality. I am not saying that that's what took place here. I am saying that that is an argument that can be made, and I think is a position that should be defended. Is it a higher order value than the celebratory value we have? I think that is for others to figure out for their institution, but I am interested in this conversation because I think that it places at its heart this contestation that we have. Do we create a safe space, a home for particular communities of people where they are comfortable with their existence versus creating a space in which there is antagonism that allows for all of us to grow and develop? I, at times, where I reside in the university, am not quite sure we can have both. And I do think that at times, we have to make a choice. Was this one of those? I don't know. Which way does Dr. Jackson want his students to go? He says, you must choose which way you will go. What does he want them to do? Yes?
I'm pretty sure he either wants them to take the high road, stop protesting, listen to what she has to say, and or just walk out. Like, that seems like the only two options, in all honesty. I'm sure he's a great man, but I've heard there made him seem like himself.
It is an interesting way in which he framed it as take the high road and stop protesting, as if the act of protesting constitutes the low road. And I think that your framing of that is an accurate one from his perspective of where it is, but I also think that it's a very interesting one as someone who is a firm advocate of social protest and free speech, that is the way in which this gets framed. Jump in.
I believe he was a engaging in a smokescreen that allowed him to claim plausible deniability. The fact that they knew that the students would feel that way, and that they also knew that many of the students at HBUs are activists and or involved in social issues, it was necessary to cover the university's backside and his own legacy to get up and say something. He did not say settle down, he did not say stop. He said that every one of you, as you engage in commencement, must make a choice about the future that you would like to engage in.
My friend, who I alluded to, who works here, says that he went off script. He went rogue. He knew the plan. This was not the plan. And I think that in really right, in some very personal ways, that he was concerned about his own legacy. And there is this part that's about, in my mind, a politics of respectability. I've invited this white woman into our house, and how dare you embarrass me? And there's a thing that's going on there that troubles me about the way in which we manage or try to manage the conversations and the interactions. I don't think that anyone at this point in time would be surprised by me saying that I am a firm defender of conflict. I believe antagonism has its value. But I also think that it needs to occur on the terms of the participants and in a way that preserves the humanity of all people. And for him to demand that those students suppress their voice at that moment is to deny them a sense of humanity that I think fundamentally needs to be challenged. Which way do you think the students want Secretary DeVos to go? What was that?
Out of the door.
Out of the door. It is very clear that they are uninterested in her being there. And I think that this gets to a place to where we are at in our society where we have to decide which way we will go. We exist in a society of heterogeneous preferences. We all are very different. That what we like and dislike varies at a very granular level as individuals. And we have to make decisions in an increasingly pluralistic society of how we're going to negotiate our differences. Which way will we go? Here's where we're at. Our second vignette, if you will. There are two potential worlds that we can say that we exist in. There's one in which we are on the city planet. And if you look at U.S. Census data, it indicates that in the next half of a century, if continuing trends continue in the way in which they have been, there will be no group in the United States that is a demographic majority. Non-Hispanic white folks are projected to peak at 2024. Sorry, white folks, you're going to be in the decline. Hispanic populations will more than double, and I don't think that there are any walls that can be built high enough in order to prevent that from taking place. Black populations are expected to go from 41 and some change million of people to 61 million people, and Asian populations are expected to double. That this is a society that Timothy Garton Ash has identified as the city planet, where we routinely rub shoulders with men and women from every country, culture, faith, and ethnicity. If you step into the metro, the tube, or the subway, all of mankind will be represented. All of humankind will be represented. That is a place that I am interested in. That is a place in which I think growth maybe happens. That is a place that is frictious, but it is a place that I think that we have the capacity of figuring out how to resolve those things. The other option, the other world, is that of white-topias. This is a book that I think you should all read. I recommend it to everybody, everywhere I can go, whether I'm doing a presentation like this, or I am just sort of someone asking what's the best book that I have read in the last few years, and it's Rich Benjamin's Searching for White-topia. Rich Benjamin argues that there are these fast-growing white locales that are geographically separated itself from the rest of the country. These are places like St. George, Utah, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or Forsyth County, Georgia, which is right north of Atlanta, Georgia, where I reside. That there's something interesting and peculiar, if you will, about the white-topias. These areas are already 75% white. They are growing at a rapid rate of 6% or more, and 90% of those people who are moving into the white-topias are more white folks. These areas are really pleasant looking. They got gazebos, swimming pools, all the lawns are manicuredly cut. They regulate the color of the paint on the houses. All the houses look the same. Pretty boxes, pretty boxes. They are places that many of us, if we're honest with ourselves, would love to live in. Except for old white people. It was like these places and, sprinkle in more folks of color. Then many more of us would want to be there. But from a geographical, structural perspective, these are places that are kind of neat. Rich Benjamin is a black man. He went to all of these areas, there were 6 of them, and he stayed there for about 6 months. And one of the things that he noticed about the white-topias was that once people got to know him, he sort of transcended being a black man. And he started to fit in. And they start to be honest with him about why it is that folks were moving into these communities. Here's my question. Why are white-topias developing? Why do we have so many people moving into white-topias? Yes?
So after slavery was abolished,
A little louder for us.
after slavery was abolished, black people started moving into cities. And so, because white people in the cities didn't want to be living next to black people, they moved out of the cities and created what we now know as suburbs outside of the cities as a sort of like from the black community.
Some people argue that cities, the metropolitan areas, the city planet that Timothy Garton Ash described, that people are not, some of us aren't really interested in participating in that grand experiment. And so, we flee to the homophily. We flee towards people who look like us. Now, here's the thing. So far, you can interpret my conversation that I'm sort of poo-pooing white folks and some choices that they're making. And I am. But it's not a choice that is uniquely made by white folks. That we all have an attraction and affinity for those who are like us. That it's not all bad. That sometimes being around people who you don't have to explain who you are and why you think a particular way, it's good for us. It calms the nerves. When you're always having to explain yourself, then it puts you in a place in which you don't feel like you ever belong. And so, I don't think that these are choices that are being uniquely made by a particular collection of people. However, I do think that we should all think about why we are making particular choices about where we reside and who we reside with and why we are finding comfort in the residence that we have inhabited. What are some other reasons for why white-topias seem to be sprouting up? We have a flee from the metropolis. What are we fleeing from?
I guess if you live with people who look the same and act the same and think the same, you never have to interrogate the idea that there could be like something unjust about the way things are.
I am tired of this conversation about racism. I am tired of this conversation about classism. I am tired of these discussions about how we're treating illegals poorly when they are clearly folks who should not be in our country. And so if I'm hanging out with people who are like me, I don't have to deal with those kinds of things. Here's one of the things that's interesting about Idaho. A substantial part of the community that is now residing in this city of Idaho comes from Los Angeles. Los Angeles, California. This doesn't seem to be a coincidence to Rich Benjamin or to me. Why do you think that they are coming from Los Angeles, and what are they fleeing from? Jump in. Difference. What kind of difference? Let's be specific. Okay? So I'm fleeing from people who are different. Who are maybe the people who are different in Los Angeles? What was that?
A lot of Hispanics.
Yes! Hispanics, Latinx folks, Chicanos. We are fleeing. This is, if you think about the way in which our conversation around immigration is taking place at this moment in our country, you should not be surprised that right within that context is a sense of fear of the other, a sense of fear of those who are invading our country from across the border, committing crimes like raping our women and stealing our homes and taking our jobs, and it is put from a particular perspective. Here's a bit of advice if you're going to have neurosis. Most of the people who are committing crimes against you are actually people who look like you. They are, in fact, you are far more likely to be attacked by someone who loves you or claims to love you than a stranger. And so, if you want to make some choices around safety and security, we should probably think less about people who are different from us and more about the people who are like us, living in the homes with us. And so, what's the downside for children who are growing up in the white-topias?
There are a lot of like diversity in they grow up. They're like parents like people like people that might not be as progressive.
Okay, so some would say that they are not as open to diversity. Others.
There's a cultural shock element. So like, for example, my mom grew up in rural Connecticut, and she had never seen a black person or a Jewish person until she went to college. And so like when she kind of first met people from that culture, she was very shocked by it and didn't really understand a lot of things.
Cultural shock. Flee from it. Jump in.
It sort of forces people that live in the white-topias to assume the narrative of the other to be true. For example, if they are only living with white folk, they will always see brown and black folk as the otherized body within America, and that sort of demarcates them as lower in a sort of social hierarchy.
There's no access to the counter-narrative. There's no, or may not be a challenge to the perspectives that we accept as whole cloth, the narratives that we have about a particular community of people. One more.
When you're not exposed to different races, if you're just in this white-topia, then that's all you see, and so you have no other information challenging this.
We are not exposed to different perspectives, and we assume that there is some value to that. Our third vignette. representation or representation? Do they matter? I'm going to show you a picture. And I'm interested in you thinking about what you see. It will be very easy for you to think about and want to talk about what you are not seeing. But I want you to use your eyes and think about what it is that you are observing. How come they don't know? And they front. And they just don't ask.
Find a black person.
What do you see?
White
White people. We see white people. What else do you see? What do you mean by privilege? Describe. Let's be specific. When you say privilege, what are we saying?
The type of people that are able to access certain things, specific white people, i.e. their social class,
Why class?
Yeah.
Why do you see class? Why do you see that?
Well, that's Paul Ryan.
Okay, so Paul Ryan stands in for class.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. What else do we see? We see the absence of reality. Jump in.
I think we see indoctrination, just the fact that these people are forming communities of themselves and not being exposed to anything else, so they don't have a conversation.
So some say that they see indoctrination that's occurring. Yes?
It shows the divide of political parties in America.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
So basically the divide between Republican and Democrat, the racial divide that pushes them apart, and how a minority would be seen as going to the Democratic side, and how the white people will be seen as going to the Republican.
Okay? Good. Here's the easier question. The one that everyone wants to answer. And the one that immediately I think jumps into our mind. What or who do we not see? In fact, I want to let's not talk about the what. Who? Who in your family? Which of your friends? Who? Those who live in your community. Who are you not seeing in this picture? Me? What do you mean me?
I don't see myself in this story.
Why not?
Meaning because I'm not, these type of people don't represent black and brown bodies or other bodies in the United States.
So, black people, brown folk are not represented. What else? Who else are we not seeing? Yes?
Well, this picture shows a very concentrated group of people with the same thinking mindset.
It's concentrated, okay?
And so their ideas aren't questioned.
Okay, we don't, their ideas may not be questioned. Who else? Yeah, I like that. Okay, who else? Who do we not see?
Poor people.
Poor. Why do you say that? Why do you think that you're not seeing poor people?
Well, all of these people look like very, very sort of high class. My dad's a lawyer. I didn't even know one.
Dress is meaningful. Dress is meaningful. I think that it is appropriate for us to point. I showed up in a suit, a tie. I even put in a pocket square together. I got my shoes all polished together. I got my belt matching my shoes. I think I got it going on right now. Dress matters. There's a fundamental difference in the way in which people on Emory's campus treat me when I'm dressed like this than when I have on a baseball cap and a hoodie. It's the reality of my existence. I am not called a student when I'm dressed like this, but I am constantly engaged with as if I am a student and told at the best of times, oh, you really look like a student when you dress like this. At other times, it is the derision and disrespect that comes with someone who is younger, someone who is assumed to be unintelligent, not worldly, not sophisticated. dress matters, and the way in which it is also an indication of cultural capital. This is not something my grandmother taught me. My grandmother taught me that I should be afraid of the police, not that I should put on a suit. And so, cultural capital gets transmitted in different ways in different places, and I think that it's appropriate to identify that it is here. Here's another thing that I don't see. I don't see someone with a hijab. I don't see indicators of religious diversity here. I don't see people with facial hair. We should understand the ways in which we come to code people based upon how they present themselves. That facial hair is an indication of being a rebel. Ain't that right, Eli? Facial hair is an indication that you ain't willing to follow the rules, and maybe I don't want you a part of my clique. And so, we should think about the ways in which not only we think about facial hair, but the way in which we come to understand other cultural characteristics that people take on. The jewelry that they wear, the way in which they adorn their hair, the type of other dress that they have on, because it is significant. Here's the question that I have here, and we need to be maybe a little quicker about this than I'd like. What does this picture say to the people who do not look like the folks here? Yes?
This isn't your group. This isn't your group.
This isn't you. What else? We don't want you. What else? Others. You don't belong.
We're happy without you.
We are happy without you.
We choose not to hear you.
We choose not to hear you.
Look how much better our community is without you.
We're smiling, happy people. Look at all the white teeth. We're definitely happy without you being here. Here's the key. Come on.
We are the ones that make your decisions. Or like decide what to do.
This, the concern, I think that you're right. The concern that we should all have about this picture. These are the interns of the House of Representatives. The Republican Party invited in from last year. This is theoretically what democracy looks like in this country. This is what access to power looks like in this country. I am certain that Paul Ryan, his primary answer, I don't want to say certain, because that's hyperbole. I would be willing to defend that Paul Ryan saw taking this picture as an opportunity to honor a set of young folks who were volunteering their time for the sake of our democracy. They have given their time to see the value of government and governance. That at a time in which there are so many people who are anti-institution, anti-establishment, him taking this selfie was a way to say thank you to these people. The problem is that it also says to other people, we don't want you, we don't need you, we don't hear you. And in a democracy, that is a terrible and a dangerous place to be. So for me, his intent is far less important than his impact. His intent of honoring these folks is far less important than the impact that it has on a large collection, potentially of our society, who comes to understand whether or not they belong, they're wanted, they're loved, they're respected. And that is something that we all need to be attentive to in the way in which we represent people and we represent people in the way in which we characterize them. Yes?
I think ironically, he might have thought it as being progressive for gender diversity. Because we look at it up front and throughout, it's like he could have been thinking that as well, because the woman seemed to be deliberately positioned toward the front and center.
This is not, I think you're right. that this was created in a way that this is orchestrated, it's curated, and with intention. Here's the other thing that I'll say about this before we move on to sort of the last bit of this conversation. I asked you to use your eyes to start with, and I did that for a reason. Because there's a danger that we have that we end up not seeing what our eyes see, but seeing impressions that we have from the past and understandings that we have of particular people. That we made some statements about this collection of people, about their ideology, about their belief systems, about their capacity to be empathetic, about the ways in which they may treat other people. And none of those are things that we see. All of those are things that we have a cultural understanding about a group of people who would be identified as members of the Republican Party. And so, as we go through thinking about how we engage and who we engage with, I hope that we will try to be more attentive to what we actually see and hear, and not what the culture, our society, teaches us about particular communities of people. So, what does this have to do with debate? Let Ai Weiwei lead the way. I'll briefly talk about Ai Weiwei, who's a Chinese dissenter, someone who is firmly committed to free speech, firmly committed to open expression, and uses his art as a way of challenging the Communist Party and trying to expand democratic rights in China. I was in Florence last November, and there was an exhibition of his work. I had no idea about who he was. And I was blown away by this exhibition, Libria. And it was about liberation and how he's using his art to try to liberate particular collections of people. Without freedom of speech, there is no modern world, just a barbaric one. Free speech is fundamental for us to carve out some space in which we can inhabit a place together where we do not have to use violence as the primary way in which we mediate our existence. If there is no freedom of expression, then the beauty of life is lost. It is fundamentally a human need. I believe that. I believe that we all have a desire and a drive to express ourselves, and that we need to cultivate communities where that is not only valued, it is relished, it is honored, and that we create that as a primary objective that we have, that people have space to articulate their beliefs, their perspectives, their ideologies, regardless of what they may be. That I call on people to be obsessed citizens, forever questioning and asking for accountability. That's the only chance that we can have healthy and happy lives. Be obsessed citizens, questioning and asking. That being powerful means being fragile. All too often we think of being powerful means being stubborn, not giving in, being rigid. In fact, being powerful means being able to shape, change, and moderate who you are and what your perspectives are. And that the world is not changing if you don't shoulder the burden of responsibility. All of us have a responsibility to try to change the world. Howard Zinn, one of my favorite historians, people's historians, wrote the autobiography, he has an autobiography that's entitled, "You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train." If the world is moving in a particular direction, and we say nothing, we are moving in that direction with it. We are offering tacit acceptance of the direction that our community is going in, our family is going in, our friends are going in, if that is the trend. And so, there is no place of neutrality for us when the world is in motion, and it is constantly in motion. You have to make a choice. Either you will resist or you will be complicit. There is no Switzerland when oppression exists. I think debate is the answer. We've asked lots of questions. What's the question? What's the question? The answer is debate. One, we have a habit of asking questions that I think unsettles and denaturalizes orthodoxy. That Vernon Ali, who's an expert in organizational intelligence and knowledge management, argues that a vital question, a creative question, rivets our attention. All of the creative power of our minds is focused on that question. And knowledge emerges as a response to a compelling question, that it opens new worlds. That as a debater, you are constantly needling. You're constantly poking. You're constantly prodding. Your parents may not like it, but I love it. And I think that as a society, we should honor it. And that we should place you on a pedestal every time you ask the question, why? Because far too few people choose to ask that question. And debate teaches us to forever ask the question, why? Debate encourages perspective taking. It encourages us to put on a different set of cultural lenses. What is it like to live the experiences of someone who is not like me? How am I to understand the world from that of a person who I will never meet, I may never hear from, but I want to be empathetic to? Debate provides us with that opportunity to have a different cultural lens. And I think that we should harness it and use it for that purpose. Debate is grounded in a pedagogy of discomfort. At its best, it teaches us to move outside of our comfort zones and begin to habitually question our most cherished beliefs and assumptions about the world. Zemblos is a professor at the Open University of Cyprus, argues that unpacking our own cherished worldviews to deconstruct the ways in which they have learned how to see, feel, and act is inherently hostile to a hospitable world, that we have to challenge those assumptions that we have. And I think debate puts us in a place where we're willing to do that. We're willing to shed the cloak of comfort and say, this is what I believe, please challenge me on it and push back. Debate is the cool process of reasoning that checks our hot emotions, that ultimately fuel fear and implicit bias. I'll be quick with this example because it's one that makes some sense to me. That here's the thing that we have. Most of us tend to make decisions trying to use intuition. We use our gut. It's like I kind of feel like this is the right thing to do. I feel like this is the right thing to put on. I feel like this is the right place to go. The problem is that feeling is informed by society. The things we've read, the things we've watched, the teachings of our parents. So it's not really our intuition. It's an amalgamation of many of the stereotypes and ways in which we understand the world. It is also based upon our understanding of who we are. When I go and hire some people, which I now am in a position to do that, if I follow my gut, I'm going to hire someone who's like me. I'm going to look for a loud, verbose, well-dressed black man because it's going to make him feel like, yeah, that's right, that guy knows what's going on. He acts just like me. And if he's doing an excellent job, that means I'm doing an excellent job. That's what my gut tells me, homophily. We want to be around people who are like us. So we can't follow our emotions. We got to use reason. I got to be willing to say, if you're loud and obnoxious, do you need another loud and obnoxious person there? If you have this perspective that's already accounted for, wouldn't it be good to have someone with a different set of perspectives here? That's reasoning, that's not intuition. And we need to embrace reasoning as a means of engagement instead of intuition. That you can read Daniel Kahneman, who's a Nobel Prize-winning behavioral psychologist who talks about this and is also fantastic. His most recent book about him is written by Michael Lewis called The Undoing Project. It is great. The last thing I'll say about this, since I referenced Timothy Garton Ash earlier, he wrote that students are debating about controversial topics. When that occurs, one can see a light bulb, a mutual understanding being switched on. In that learning environment, young people are thus equipped to think critically about prejudice, understand where their people are coming from, and develop imaginative sympathy. Remember the city planet that I alluded to earlier? He talked about the city planet in the same book that he talked about the value of debate. He believes that if we're going to find a way to negotiate the city planet that we're living in, the plurality of a society that we're creating, we have to have debate, and we have to have people who are willing to debate. And for that, I thank you. The final thing I'll say, I want you to learn to love and live the question. Learn to love and live the questions, not the answers, but the questions. Rainer Maria Rilke was a poet, and he wrote these letters to a student, Capus, in the early 1900s. They wrote back and forth. They didn't have email back then, if you didn't know. So it took a little while. They write it on paper, they put it in mail, and they send it away. And he has this book called The Letters of a Young Poet. And Capus, in one letter, asked Wilkie about, being in a situation where he was a little uncomfortable, not knowing what to do next, not knowing what the solution to the problem was. And Rilke wrote back, "My dear Capus, I want to beg of you, as much as I can, dear sir, to be patient towards all that is unresolved in your heart, and to try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms, and like books that are written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answer which cannot be given to you, because you would not be able to live them. You would not be able to live them." And the point is to live everything. Live the question now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along on some distant day into the question. If we're willing to ask why, if we're willing to ask the right questions, if we're willing to be brave and challenge our parents, our sisters, our brothers, our best friends, our debate partners, to challenge them with the loving question of why, we will eventually come to the answer. And this is why I think that debate is the best thing we have going for us, and it is a solution to where we are in the world. That we need more people debating, not less. We need more people who are willing to ask questions, not less. We don't need more dogmatism. We need more people who are curious and willing to ask questions about their curiosity. And so, I thank you for allowing me to come and hang out with you for a little bit. Thank you for being willing to ask questions.
Yeah, time for a few questions if people have it.
So, time there, some folks may have a couple of questions. Yes.
How do you manage being black and in a powerful position at Emory University? And how do you navigate the debate space when you are coaching your teams or helping your coaches coach your teams?
So it's an interesting question in that I have constantly used my position as the debate coach as a reason for why it is that I get to say the things I say and ask the questions that I ask. And so in my job description, it tells me that it is my duty to teach people how to debate. And fundamentally to that is teaching people to make better arguments and to use better reasoning in the ways in which they make decisions. And so I am someone who has learned the capacity to ask questions in a way, and that's what I do. I'm someone who's rarely telling people the answer, but I'm asking the question, and when there's pushback, I say, but this is my job. I've been hired to be a debate coach. Now, I think that the response that we should make for those who are not even hired to be debate coaches is, I am a citizen. And a primary responsibility of a citizen is to challenge the way in which we develop a community. That I have responsibilities to those who are a part of the community that I am part of to make that community better. And in order to do that, we have to be willing to ask questions. And we need to do so in a way that incorporates other people in the process. And so the way in which I sort of deal with, at times, what I think you may be alluding to, sort of some concerns and consternations about the way in which I am embodied, is by also trying to be aware of where other people are coming from. That I simultaneously exist as a host and a guest. I am inviting people to be a part of my life and experience the world that I am experiencing, but I am also a guest in their lives and in their worlds. And that we have responsibilities as both a host and a guest to honor those people. I believe that we should respect and be hospitable to all people, while simultaneously giving them the gift of vigorously challenging their ideas.
If you were to give two pieces of advice for debaters now to being successful, what would it be?
2 pieces of advice for debaters to be successful. Read, read, read. Leaders read, readers lead. That you need to have an understanding of the world from a multitude of perspectives. That I think that the capacity to take an idea and to present an idea from all its angles, all of its perspectives, is a wicked tool that's extremely powerful. And at its best, you come to understand what the other sides and the weakness of an argument is. The second thing, other than read, 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 is always debate the best version of an argument. Always debate the best version of an argument. That even if they are presenting a poor piece of evidence, even if they have presented that argument in a poor form and structure, don't debate the poor form and structure of the argument. Debate the best version of the argument. All too often, I think a lot of debaters find themselves debating down to an argument, are misunderstanding, are misinterpreting an argument, are having a different interpretation than their judges do. But if you're debating an issue in its best version, you don't run the risk of doing that.
What's your advice for kids who may want to be in positions of power in the future that is silenced right now, or can't get to that point?
I don't. Interesting. I'll start here. One of the things that attracted me to debate was that I kind of struggled in class. And that's a story for probably a lot of people. And the things that I struggled with was being told that now is not the right time. That we don't need to talk about this issue right now. That I get that sort of our conversation about Macbeth, you may not quite see its relevance, and that you want to sort of explore some of the ways in which race may play out in this, but now may not be the time. And for me, debate was that place where I could find my voice, and it was that place where people couldn't tell me to shut up. Living in a household, there are a bunch of awesome things that came with living in a household with 5 women. I am a feminist. And I wear that with a badge of honor. I'm a feminist. 5 women, but I constantly got told to shut up. And debate was a place in which I was able to sort of find my voice and articulate that voice. And I think in some ways the advice that I would give would be similar to the advice that Raina Maria Wilke gives. Be patient on campus. Plot, learn, wait. Your time will come. That if you're someone who's dedicated to the craft, if you're someone who's dedicated to learning, if you're someone who's willing to put in practice, if you're someone who is willing to dedicate yourself to the cause of being not only just a better speaker, not only just a better debater, but someone who is willing to try to account for the needs of others in doing that, your time will come.
What would you say was your greatest challenge in debate, and how did you overcome it?
My greatest challenge and my greatest strength is probably, it sounds like one of these interview answers that people give. It's like, what's your weakness? And you say, oh, I work so hard that I stay up all night. And it's like, but when I started debating, my teacher didn't know anything about debate. In fact, we were learning how to debate together. And so I started off as a place that was really far behind most people in learning how to debate. I went to college and I debated for a year and some change, and I was sort of behind in doing that. But I say that it's my greatest strength because my teacher was a lifelong learner. And that she wasn't afraid. She was a woman who was probably in her 40s at that point in time and wasn't afraid to sit with a bunch of 16-year-olds and say, I don't know what this is. Let's figure it out together. And that was totally sweet and awesome to have that. And so how did I overcome it? I worked. And that's sort of the typical response. But one of the things I sort of pride myself on now, and I think the reason why I am where I am in the institution that I am at, is that I believe that there's inherent value in working hard and that there's inherent value in hard work. Debate is hard. That it is so difficult. You will never do anything harder than trying to win an argument against someone who is wickedly smart and that they are just as invested in winning as you are. And I don't have as much difficulty winning arguments against my colleagues now. They don't have much debate experience as I did then. But I still have this habit of working hard and honoring hard work. And so that's probably it.
2 or 3 more.
I think you agree that the way to obtain education is through questioning, but how do you introduce them to the classroom?
I don't think the classroom is the primary mode of education. I know I have teachers here, and teachers are awesome and amazing, and the people who I identified as sort of my Mount Rushmore of people who have informed my world, 3 of those are teachers. Here's the reality, though, that I've come to the conclusion that what school is really primarily about, and from an organizational structure, is to socialize us to be a part of a community. Now, I don't say that maligning the act of socialization. I think that it has a tremendous amount of value. We need to come to understand how do we exist in a community and be willing to sacrifice to others for others, because we can't exist as isolated silos and just be people who are unwilling to think about others. And I think that schooling teaches us that, but it does so in a very rigid form and fashion, and it can't really account for all of the learning differences that people have and all of the different interests that people have, and that the best educators are ones who meet students where they're at and try to sort of lend their hooks into sort of a set of interests that they have and take them on a journey to learn how to add, which is what happened to me. I am terrible at math, but someone taught me how to add by starting off talking about hip-hop. But I don't think that our teachers are always in the best place to do that. And so in reality, I think that from where you're asking the question about education, and becoming someone who's a learned human being about the world, I just think you gotta sort of take on that and sort of say that it is also my job to figure out what that is and to use your teachers and parents as resources to do that. Constantly ask people, what books have you read that you thought were totally sweet and awesome, and go and read those books. And constantly find smart people who are thinking about things in some different ways. Those quirky people, those people who are at your school who are just like, oh my God, they wear all black. Oh my God, why are they wearing their pants backwards? Oh my God, why are they wearing socks that are mismatched? Those are people that I now try to spend time with. When I was your age, I shunned them just like many of you probably do, except for those in this room who are those people. You are going to be totally sweet and you're going to change the world because you have a capacity to be originals and be creative in ways that many of us don't. But try to find those people and figure out where they are in the world. But take ownership of your education.
2 more. Anybody who's not asked one? Have one here. Let's make that the final one so we can stand first. Yes.
So how do you communicate your ideas to people who haven't been exposed to debate in other forms of education as you have?
I try to really be open and honest and welcoming to people. I'll let you in on a little secret. I gave this presentation before. I gave this presentation, different. I didn't add the debate stuff. One of the vignettes is new, but substantively a lot of it was the same. And it was at an institute for student affairs professionals where I was trying to encourage them to think about the value of conflict and see the value of engaging in argument. And so instead of trying to constantly create safe spaces for students, that we create a safe space for conflict, which was the argument that I was making. And so I didn't talk about debate. What I did was I talked about it in language that they're familiar with. I think that one of the skills that we should be trying to teach students and that we should all be trying to cultivate constantly is the ability to analyze our audience and adapt to our audience. That's one of the things that we kind of claim that debate teaches us, but I have some concerns about its capacity to do so in the way in which we're structuring the game now. But I do think that you can think about that. You should do some research on who's your audience. What is it that your audience wants? What is it that they expect? What are their values? And as you are putting together your presentation, figure out how you can say the exact same things that you want to say, but in a way that's aligned with who they are. And so I talk much more about debate and the value of debate in this environment because I got a large collection of debaters I'm hanging out with. And when I had a similar conversation with some student affairs professionals, I never used the word debate, but I put forward some similar concepts around the value of conflict and engaging other people about their differences and across their differences. So audience analysis and audience research and figuring out ways to tailor your arguments.
Okay, let's show some love for Mr. Lee.